introduce our next couple of speakers. Imam Suhaib Webb, of course, needs no introduction. He is one of the most iconic American imams currently out there. Someone who I have long tried to get involved in doing some sort of Concordia program. So I'm delighted that at the invitation of Dr. Abbas, who's a director at CARE, he's agreed to join us. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Abbas to moderate the next session with Imam Suhaib Webb. Welcome both.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Just a quick sound check. Mudassir, can you hear me okay? Okay, sounds good. Imam Suhaib, we're going to need you to unmute, inshallah.
How's that? You good?
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum and sabah al-khair, Imam Suhaib. How you doing, man?
Alhamdulillah, sabah al-nur, tashakkur.
Hey, thanks for joining us. The Concordia team has been at it all morning. You know, they get started because of the time difference, but this thing runs, mashallah. Today, how much time do we got? Are we on for 12 hours today, Mudassir? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, 12 hours in total, but unfortunately, we only have Imam Suhaib and you for one.
Okay, no, alhamdulillah. I don't know if we could go for more than that without making you guys a little bit annoyed. But alhamdulillah, today we just figured we'd have a little bit of a conversation, both about some of the immediate things that are pressing issues around our community, and also, you know, some more kind of philosophical reflections a little bit. But before we get, you know, right into it, so hey, how you doing? What's going on over there? Where you at these days? How you holding up? You know, what's your day-to-day like these days?
I'm good. I'm in DC. I mean, I'm from New York, but we were very sick. My wife and I in New York for like 2 weeks. And we came out.
You guys got sick?
Yeah, we were very sick. And then we came out into the streets of New York City and people were just like out, like there was no problems. So we have a 10-month-old baby, so we didn't want to get stuck, you know, in the hospital potentially with no. So we moved down here to Maryland. I think one of the Concordia members, my brother-in-law, Harun, lives in the area. And last night at 3 o'clock in the morning, I did Dancing with the Stars with my daughter. She decided to try out all the latest dance moves. We're good. But I mean, we're worried. I mean, every day, you know, if you're from New York City, then, you know, every day you're dealing with immediate death.
Yeah, of course, man.
So,
of course.
The challenges is just, and then being, you know, kind of in the role I play under Imam Khalid, you know, we're dealing with like, we have more than 50 people at the ICNYU that have been impacted explicitly by Corona.
Really?
Yeah.
Like in what way? In terms of people getting sick or people having to lose work?
Like yesterday, a brother lost his father. His mother's now in ICU. His sister has it. His brother-in-law has it. You know, so you're dealing with a very, very vicious virus.
Yeah.
We have, I think, 2 community members who lost uncles. So yeah, you're just dealing with people. Some of my students in my class at NYU have had it. Their parents have it. Yeah. So in that way, we deal with kind of the ministerial side of it.
Yeah, of course.
Rough. It's rough, right?
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of people, if you wouldn't mind replying there, Imam Suhaib, you know, you've worn a lot of hats over the years, and a lot of people know you as the Snapchat Imam. But if you could kind of give a breakdown of what you do over at NYU, I think a lot of people might not be aware of your new position there. I know it's not new, but a lot of people might not be aware. And then also a little bit about Swiss.
So, alhamdulillah, I'm at the lowest totem pole economically. I'm an assistant adjunct professor at NYU, which is good, which means
it's freedom. It's freedom. It's freedom.
Exactly. So you're free enough to do what you want and free enough to be you know, kind of off the radar. And then I work under Imam Khalid at the IC, in my main capacity as a researcher at the ICNYU.
I see.
And I teach a course with Sheikh Fayaz Jaffer, who's coming from the Jafri perspective, of course.
Oh.
We teach a class together at NYU on Islamic law. And then in the spring, we teach a class on Sufism from the 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 2 perspectives, yeah.
And so you do both of those together. That's great.
Yeah. So we alternate and then we come together. So we give different perspectives. So it's
Oh,
pretty
that's great. I actually, I didn't really know that. That's wonderful, man. That's good to hear. And then tell us about Swiss, man. What's going on with Swiss? That's your
This
latest
is like
project.
a Netflix for Muslims. Over the last, I have a degree in education as well. So over the last few years, we noticed how Muslims were consuming their content, kind of like Concordia, right? Like how Muslims are consuming their content began to radically change.
Mm-hmm.
And then we noticed that gulf between like teachers and students. That wasn't necessarily like anything like animosity, it was just more of packaging and communication.
Yeah, of
So we
course.
started kind of like a Netflix for Muslims who, like we have a guy, one of our students, he's in the ICU right now. Like he works in the ICU. So he listens to like our course. So there
I
are
see.
online on-demand courses that people pay $10 a month. And then also we run a series of free programs during Corona for teens. We have 3,000 kids signed up.
That's amazing.
From 13 to 21.
What kind of questions are they getting at you these days? This kind of teenage crowd.
Teenagers are very interesting, man. They're very optimistic. I think sometimes we forget maybe how optimistic young people are. But a lot of questions that they ask about is like, what after? Like, how do you return back? It's almost like you were, you did like a military duty or you've been in prison or something. Like, what comes after this?
Yeah.
Nothing like about, theodicy, so to speak. More so like, I hate to say, it's like, what if I'm being abused at home and I'm in quarantine with my abuser?
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Those are the kind of questions that really are difficult to navigate because we get them in touch with resources.
Yeah,
but
obviously.
Where are they going to go? Right? A lot of things are shut down. A lot of questions that we get are about, sometimes the collective imagination Muslims about their religion can be wrong. So when I told them the first obligation in Islam is to think, and they're like, what? I was like, they were like, we thought it was to be quiet. So they've been conditioned, right? They've been conditioned in a way. So there's been like this beautiful kind of blossoming to see them, because I teach them like an Azhar textbook, from where I went to school, like the Hogwarts of the Muslim world. So they're like, oh, wow, like this is really what it is. We thought it was like, be quiet, juk karo, khabardar, be quiet.
Yeah.
So it's been more of a positive experience. So much.
Well, I think that's really enriching because a lot of folks don't recognize just how rich the tradition is, and the younger folks, once they recognize the kind of respect for learning that we have in our tradition, they could open up to it. I was reading a new book recently. It's called Light in the Heavens, Kitab al-Shihab. I don't know if you're familiar with this, by Al-Qadi Al-Qudai. But it's basically extracts of hadith that are turned into aphorisms. And one of them, now that you mentioned the obligation to think, that I write down in my journal on a regular basis is La ibadah kal tafakkur, right? It's like there is no like greater worship than than reflection and thinking, so subhanAllah, So thank you for putting that in the chat. So I was just about to ask you about this. So Swiss, the information for Swiss you can find at suhaibwebb.com.
And one more thing about them, sorry to cut you off. Is it okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is that, so we were very careful in how we set this up, because we moved quickly when Corona hit. We realized these kids are no longer have Islamic school, even their parents, right? So we put it together. We didn't realize we have 3,000 kids enrolled. But one of the things that we did is kept it very age specific. So you'll be in a Zoom room with like 300 kids. And one of the things they said is like, I just really like being around like my age group. So we're running analytics actually, like we're learning from them. But one of the things that keeps coming up like is like, I really like being around my age group during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because imagine how the social circle just like shrank to nothing, in a few days. So just to be around their own age demographic is something that we keep hearing from them.
Well, Allah barak fik for providing that space for them. I got to get my son hip to this because he just turned 15, mashallah, like last week. And just watching the changes, how rapidly the changes have been in his personality and his body and everything, or just over the last like year has been really enormous. And I'm trying to keep up with it. So Jazakallah khair for providing such a space, you know, talking about thinking and talking about sort of adjusting and adapting to the situation, I know that our community has been rife with questions since day one on this thing, since closing down our mosques, and now as Ramadan is approaching, a lot of questions from a fiqh perspective. So I know you commented a little bit about Jummah prayers, and now there's conversations about Taraweeh, and there's conversations about Salat for medical workers and fasting for, you know, Siyam for medical workers and things like that. And wondering if you could just spend a moment to talk both about what your opinion is from a fiqh perspective on these issues. What are the major issues that are coming up, but also to kind of explain the logic of dispensation, of the rukhsa of this moment, you know, for people to understand.
And this feeds into what we're going to talk about, right? Like the rukhas, these legal dispensations are really there when theodicy kicks in, right? Tolkien says, all who wander aren't lost. From the Lord of the Rings, right?
Break down theodicy for folks real quick.
Theodicy means like, why do things happen? In particular, like bad things, right?
Yeah.
And we know, you know, the Quran says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, right? Like, who created life and death. Ibla is a test which we're not sure how the one being tested is going to react. So this is for us to see, you know, who we are. I mean, the creation starts with a test. That's how Iblis is revealed, right? The strong opinion is that Iblis took on the shape of an angel. And that's why Allah says, مَا تُبَدُونَ وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ. The angels don't hide anything from God. So who is he talking to? He's talking to Iblis, who the angels thought was an angel. And then when he orders them to make sujood, the jig is up, right, so to speak. So theodicy is seen as something that can expose hypocrisy, can expose our own weaknesses and increase our reliance on God and our reliance on one another. There's like six or seven orthodox speaking fruit, but these mushaqqat, right? We have an axiom in Islamic law, mushaqqat tajribu taysir. And mushaqqat tajribu taysir, hardship brings ease. And those hardships are fear, health, mental and physical health, by the way. And not waiting for someone to become ill. Imam al-Haramain said a competent jurist reacts before people need the axiom, right? So he buffers the situation, or she buffers as a jurist, she buffers it. She doesn't wait for the all hell to break loose. So a competent jurist, and that's why, you know, we'll step in based on like analytics, right? Partnership.
Yeah.
I belong to the North American Fiqh Council. Like, we have scientists that we regularly talk to, infectious disease people now we're talking to. So fear, sickness, travel, forgetfulness, so Alzheimer's, dementia, any type of cognitive disorder, OCD, all that has to be taken. So why would some methods allow people to say their intention? Because, you know, hundreds of years ago, people couldn't remember. Did I make the intention or not? Oh, just say it, right? And then being financially unable, and that there's another axiom, right? You know this very well. It's one of the 5 major axioms of Islam. It's like al-amru mabni ala istita'a, right? That orders, that commands and prohibitions are based on ability. So the predominant approach towards what you're seeing now is that, and there's a great book by Yazid ibn Abdul Salam, who you know very well, where he talks about tasqit al-fara'id wa taghyir al-fara'id, right? There's situations where the fard can be dropped. For example, if somebody is fearful that they'll lose their business if they go to Jummah, someone will rob their store. They're allowed, if someone has this beautiful, in the Maliki method, but someone has sick parents or a sick family member, they're excused from going to the mosque for 2 reasons. One is they need to care for the person, and then they may also now be carrying the illness. And you know, it's interesting that you bring this up, because oftentimes I hear people say, like, where's our religion speaking on these issues? No, are you listening to the religion?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are thinking, a lot of people are assuming that if you're not that committed to the fard, that somehow it's a measure of your lack of piety, or it's a sign of your lack of piety. So if you're quick to abandon Jummah or abandon Taraweeh, or like, you know, not really hold it down, as they say, right? That somehow you're weak in your faith. And so that's sort of this weird test that we have going on in our community right now. There's kind of a posturing for piety.
And then also the assumptions that are brought on by a post-enlightenment West about religion. Sometimes we project Western experiences with religion onto Islam. So like traditionalist versus progressives, you know. I had a friend, he says, I'm progressive. I said, where are you headed? Like, what do you mean? Well, you're progressive. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, where am I? And I told, where am I regressing to? Like right,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like some of the terminology. But, you know, if you look even at the 6 books of Hadith, the famous Sahih Sitta, every single one of them has a chapter on plagues. Bukhari has ma yuzkaru fi ta'un, what should be said during a plague. Abu Dawud has whoever dies in the plague dies a shaheed. It's a chapter. Imam at-Tirmidhi has a chapter on being quarantined. You know, your man from Persia, he invented quarantine. Ibn Sina, Arba'in became quarantine. Like this is known through Italy. So it's in the first book in the Islamic world, I believe, that was written on plagues was 241 after Hijri. Ibn Abi Dunya. So like, are we listening? Are we listening?
Ibn Abi Dunya's got a book on plagues, huh?
Yeah. And Ibn Hajar Asqalani lost 3 children to the bubonic plague.
SubhanAllah.
2 daughters in 819 and a daughter in 833. And then he wrote a book called Badlul Ma'un fi Fadd al-Ta'un. He wrote a book on the virtues of plagues. Imam al-Zahabi died in the plague, the bubonic plague. So this is not the first time mosques were shut. This is not the first time Masjid al-Haram has been closed. So eschatology makes people crazy, you know?
Yeah, but that's actually, that's a really important point, is that in addition to the direct answers that we're giving to issues like Jummah and Taraweeh and things like that, for me, this is a real learning moment where we could educate about the dynamics of the deen itself, about the tradition itself, both on a historical side, so people can understand from a civilizational point of view, the richness that we have from an intellectual point of view, what kind of tools that we have. And there can be inshallah, a renewed respect for the Sharia and for the fiqh itself. Most people don't even recognize what usul al-fiqh is because they've been introduced to this kind of, you know, this hadith as fiqh, or like, you know, sunnah as hadith kind of approach, which isn't only literalist. You know, I don't want to take away, you know, the benefits of the literalist school, but the fact is that a lot of people just simply abandoned the notion that our tradition has these tools. So just a quick breakdown. The Fiqh Council of North America, alongside Amja, I believe, have both said that Taraweeh is not really Taraweeh if you're doing it virtually. Jummah is not really Jummah if you're doing it virtually. Is that correct?
Yeah. And there's, you know, I think Dr. Yasser Qadi, I know I used to work at Harvard, so I hate to say this, he's from Yale. Stuff full of But you know, he wrote a really good paper on this, and there's reasons for that, right? The bigger reason is that, and again, the Prophet ﷺ said that the best place to pray non-fard prayers is your house, right? أفضل صلاة الرجل في بيته لا تجعلوا بيوتكم مقابر, right? Don't make your house a graveyard. And that actually how we're going to pray Taraweeh is more in line with how the Sahaba prayed Taraweeh. You know, in the Maliki madhab, the predominant opinion is you should pray Taraweeh at home to avoid ostentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then in the Jafari school too, like you pray at home.
Yeah, it's not even a thing. So now Taraweeh, it doesn't even exist.
I think it's like mandubile, like it's not a hardly stressed thing. So in many ways, you know, this form of Taraweeh is more in line with, and then like, it's good for families to pray together. It's a good thing. Like if you want to pray together, you know, you can have your children pray. You know, it's like there's a lot that can come out of this moment. And so one of the things that came up in a meeting last 3 or 4 nights ago, and North American Fiqh Council, like 80 ballers, bro. Like it's not just like, you know, like hey from Oklahoma, right? Like it's like like original gangsters, like, you know, Wu-Tang status, right? It's not Soldier Battle. It's ODB, right? So, like their discussions.
So who's the RZA of North American Fiqh Council? Is that
Muzammil Siddiqui, baby? Muzammil Siddiqui is the RZA, right? Yeah. Who would Mudassir be though? Mudassir. Inspector Deck, man. He inspected.
You think Inspector Deck, man?
I don't think anyone here knows what we're talking about. But
I think there's a couple people, man. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
But the point I'm trying to make is one of the things that they have been talking about, which I think is really beautiful, is then how do you, and they have to hurry, right? Everybody's hurrying, by the way. This is something everybody's rushing to stay in front of this horrible situation. Is like, then how do you create like educational materials for people that are praying Taraweeh at home with their families? Like people asking, like, what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how do I pray Taraweeh with my family?
Yeah, actually, could you say this? I mean, there's some schools that say that it would be okay for people to hold the Quran and read surahs while they're in salat. Is that something you agree with?
Absolutely, because you know, this is what Aisha used to do. Bibi Aisha used to hold like a piece of paper and pray, or like pieces of skin, like leather, I guess would be what you would hold, or leaves. Yeah, so they can. I heard Dr. Muzammil say you can use your mobile phone. You can hold the Quran. Absolutely, yeah. And again, these major faith councils, I think, except maybe in Pakistan, is where there seems to be some issues right now. The majority of them have been invoking the tradition and saying mosques should be closed. Even the ants, right, in Sultan Amal, you know, stay in your homes, right, as a quarantine, you know.
Yeah,
you know, Suleiman and his army will hurt you. So quarantine yourselves in your homes.
Yeah, subhanAllah.
Interesting, right? So like the majority of faith councils saying people should stay at home, should avoid, you know, social gatherings, and should listen to authorities, right? What authorities are telling them, unless it's people telling them to go out, like Trump has been telling people. And then also to pray Taraweeh at home, you know. And then you can actually listen to the Eid khutbah, right, online, and then pray Eid Salah at your house. And that's where there's some discussions, like, could you listen to because, you know, some people said that the only thing that's fard in Jummah is the 2 rakat, like a shokani. So you could listen to the Friday sermon and then later pray Jummah, you know, as a group.
What about what about these issues around fasting during a plague, or salat during a plague? So, for example, you've got people that are medical workers, you know, that are tending on the front lines right now, people working in ICU and whatnot. Is there anything unique about this situation and theirs that would, that would exempt them from fasting at this time?
Yeah, actually, I have a clip out there. I did a thing about that on YouTube, a short, like 5-minute answer to this question. Absolutely, like in classic books of fiqh, because we have another axiom, al-wasa'il laha ahkam al-maqasid, right? That means take on the ruling of their goal. So means here would be healthcare providers and staff, because the goal is to keep people alive, right? So they now take on the same ruling as the person they treat. It's a very beautiful thing, right? So they're given the same dispensation as the actual sick person, because they are fundamental to that sick person
mashallah.
becoming better. So we say, it's a beautiful axiom. It says, al-tibba, that doctors to the sick are like wudu to salah. You have no salah without wudu, right? So in our text, you're going to find like classical books, and that doesn't mean these classical books are perfect, right? We're not going to romanticize the tradition. We need to be
of course.
critical. I don't want people to misunderstand where I'm coming from. But these people are, first of all, these are heroes, right? We should be praying for them. I encourage Muslims locally. I know in New York, like Imam Khalid and them, they raise like, I think $400,000 for the economically impacted. And then also they raised, with Penny Appeal, sorry if I'm not supposed to talk about any other groups or whatever, but like they raised like 500,000 masks for the city, right? So we need to be helping these people. That's the best thing we can do. I mean, you know, if we're saying like, are you praying and God doesn't have a mask, it's kind of like, doesn't really work, right? Yeah. But then to see these people asking us, can I still, like asking about Salah while you work in the ICU, dude, like what kind of amazing human being are you? Like,
yeah, mashallah. Yeah,
right?
mashallah.
So like these people are given even issues of tahara. And you know, this also applies to like mothers who are breastfeeding. Like, I mean, it's very profound. The Hanbali give 8 reasons why someone could join prayers. One is the shughul wal udhr, work and excuses. And these are all, yeah. And then that axiom, al-wasa'il لها أحكام المقاصد. Right? The means take on the ruling of the goal.
That's amazing, actually. And a lot of people, again, they're not aware of this richness. And I really appreciate you, to be honest with you. And I told you this before, when I was teaching in the university, I used to use some of your fatwa because you could bring through some of the maqasid and usuli and, you know, qawaid principles, and people could actually see the mechanics of the decision making. So I really appreciate
like the question in the comments right now, and I know we want to talk about theology.
Yeah, gotcha, yeah.
But look at the question, like, what, like, can I read in English? Like, well, if somebody can't read Arabic, you know, Abu Hanifa is like, handle your business, right? In the non-fard prayers.
And the non-fard prayers, that's a major difference. It's a major point. A lot of people
not praying. This person's not praying a fard; they're trying to pray a sunnah, right? So if somebody can't read Arabic proficiently, or, you know, for some people, Arabic can be traumatic. Like, they may have had bad experience. These are the things that the jurist has to look at. Like, are people traumatized?
Mm-hmm.
Do people have, like, you know, a bad collective memory? And we'll talk about this hopefully in Theodicy, right? Like, so these are things where, and these are not fatwa that should be put on internet, right? Because it's going to create a massive, these are fatwa khas. These are answers for people. Like, one thing that's interesting is, like, in the last 2 months, man, the number of 17 to 18-year-old American women that have embraced Islam is insane.
Really?
Yeah, on the gram, because the gram is their, you know, Instagram for Rabbul Anam is the Instagram, you know, like, that's where, and they're like, it's a lady that contacted me, she's in the deep South. She's like, the quarantine has impacted my ability to practice Islam, because my practice was when I was free. I could leave the house. She's a closet Muslim.
I got you.
Right. So then how is she going to do all the things we're talking about now? How would she even fast? Like,
yeah. She's hiding it from her parents down here in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wild.
She's more southern than you, bro. She's almost in the Gulf of, you know. She's
I live in Sean Hannity's neighborhood, man.
God help you.
I live up here. I live up here, Roswell, Georgia, man. You know, these are some, you know, everybody over here, these are the folks that stocked up on all the ammunition and toilet paper, man. They've been waiting for the rapture for the last, like, 2 decades. They are ready. You don't really want to, you know, this is the best place to be, man. These folks are ready. You know what I'm saying?
Strapped.
Yeah, strapped, ready to go with toilet paper and ammunition. And they, with their homeowners associations, they're ready to go.
Oh my God. Wow.
Subhanallah. Hey, real quick before we jump into some of the stuff that I was hoping that we'd get into, what are you doing this Ramadan, man? Any kind of goals that you have that we could pick up on? Any kind of words of wisdom before we get going into some of the philosophy?
You know, I think my main focus is my kids, right? You know, I have a new baby.
Alhamdulillah.
So my baby, she was actually born last Ramadan. It's been a year. I was thinking about what kind of, and she was born, she was in the NICU for like a week or two. Really? So I was thinking, like, what kind of life has she had up until this point, right? Like, how is it going to impact the development of children? But on a good side, because her grandma speaks Persian, her grandpa speaks Arabic, I speak Oklahoman. So at least she's getting exposed to, like, multiple.
Absolutely.
And Egyptian command and أحكي معها بالمصرية. But yeah, I think, like, my main focus is that. And then I'm working on finishing 7 ways of reading the Quran. So I got exams with my teacher.
Mashallah. Good for you, man. Always learning, man. I'm glad to see it, man. Always keeping it up, man. All right. So thanks for going through all of that stuff with us. I thought we'd do something a little bit different, a little bit interesting this time around. As you know, I used to teach comparative religion in the university. And, you know, when you do that, one of the things that you have to do is you have to kind of string together common themes across global traditions, both to show how there are certain things in common and also show how they deal with things differently. And so I used to always do these experiments around what we might call tasawwuf for Sufism on the intellectual side. Other people might call it asceticism. Some people call it, you know, there'll be like Zen Buddhism, there'll be Stoic philosophy, different kinds of things. And so I thought it might be fun to read from 2 schools of thinking that I feel really do exemplify what the kind of cognitive tools that we need right now to get through the moment. And so that's why the session is called Knowing the Now, how to navigate uncertainty at this time. And so the first thing I wanted to bring up was this philosopher king that most people know through the movie Braveheart. A lot of people remember, no, excuse me, Gladiator. Through the movie Gladiator, a lot of people remember the kind of philosopher king and gladiator that gets killed by his son. That's Marcus Aurelius. I don't know if other people are hip to him or not, but Marcus Aurelius was a proper philosopher king, and he belonged to this Stoic school of philosophy, which a lot of people will understand now as simply being emotionless or indifferent to emotion or to challenges or to impressions. To not feel is what we commonly associate with the word stoicism, or to be stoic. But the Stoic school of philosophy really was about accepting reality as is and accepting sort of nature as is. And for me, this is a really important point right now, because a lot of people just got rocked with what's happening right now. A lot of people simply do not understand how to navigate the situation. They're really disoriented. But the kind of cognitive tools and meditative tools that the Stoic school gives us, particularly through Marcus Aurelius, who was writing in a journal called The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, some of those tools and some of those ideas are really powerful for me. And I wanted to share some of them with you and see if you had any comments on these. So I'm going to start off with just reading a couple of these quotes. I appreciate people, indulging us in this experiment right now. So one of them is, confine yourself to the present. So any comments from the Islamic school about sort of, being in the present moment? And then he's got one here that I think is a little bit of a stretch to imagine that somebody could be this in tune. He says, how ridiculous and how strange it is to be surprised at anything that happens in life. How ridiculous, how strange it is to be surprised at anything which happens in life. Confine yourself to the present. Any stories from the prophets, from the Sahaba, ayat from the Quran, any lessons you could give us from our tradition to kind of hone in this focus on the present?
Yeah, I mean, so is it okay if we're like a little bit conveniently maybe in disagreement with some of these people?
Yeah, absolutely. You should be.
So,
you know what I'm saying?
Islam would say it's okay to be surprised at life at times, right? Like that's part of our recognition that Allah is Al-Qahhar.
Al-Qahhar.
Meaning the one who does what he wants. So we actually, there's an axiom, there's an axiom that says emotions are not part of taklif, in the sense of like naturally emotions, like to be surprised. So like look at it's very interesting you talk about the now and shock. So look at Ibrahim when he thought those were men that came to eat with him. And you know what's interesting? So he brought the food, he prepared for them. He prepared the food and he brought it to them and they didn't eat it. And he got shocked and scared because he realized. And there's something my teacher said, Ibrahim was such a good cook, he knew only a non-human could say no to his food. Right? Like Ibrahim brought it. Like he hooked it up. He and his wife made this amazing meal. He's like, only a non-human being can say no to my food. Right? But he was shocked with the now and scared. فَأَوْجَسَ مِنْهُمْ means like khifa, in a state of fear. So we might respond to, because Marcus Aurelius is coming from a Stoic philosophy, which is like, you don't react. But Islam says reactions are very normal within a certain level.
But it's kind of what you do with that. So what did Ibrahim alayhi salam do with that shock, with that value? Did it put him into spin out? You know what I mean? He didn't spin out of control. He didn't lose his deen or nothing like that. And actually we see it in the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam a lot. Sort of, there are these very human emotions and reactions. And then there's a kind of management of that activity. So what does that look like? How did he react to that?
And Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, when he lost his son, he cried. And the Bedouin said to him, the Bedouin is the Stoic. The Bedouin is Marcus Aurelius.
Okay,
right?
okay.
You cry? You cry? You're crying. He said, I can't help it if Allah took mercy from your heart, bro. Like, and then here's your answer. He said, the eye shed tears and the heart breaks, but the tongue says nothing against Allah's will.
Aha.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean everyone can do that. You know what I mean? That's an ideal. Like even in Fatiha, if you look at Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha, when it talks about bad things, it's in the passive. Maghdubi alayhim. Somebody's angry with them. It doesn't say who's angry. Look at Khadr with Musa. When, and this is, you know, the story of Khadr and Musa really can encapsulate any philosophy. And even within Islam, we have 3 opinions about theodicy within our groups, right? When Khadr is explaining to Musa the wisdoms of everything that happened, if it's something that seems bad, he says, fa'altu fa'alna. We wanted to, aradna aradtu. But when it was put in the wall back for the orphans, he said, fa'arada rabbuk. Your Lord wanted to, right? Again, showing like we don't want to see anything bad about God. When Ayub is sick, he said, Masani ad-durru. He didn't say, Qada Rabbi an akun maridan. Like God didn't decree that I'm sick, even though we believe that. And again, and just a point about Fatiha, when you talk about those who have anger, it's maghdubi, but those who have blessing, an'amta alayhim. It's not passive. Arabic likes to, you know, you professors will go crazy, man. Arabic is passive, active, passive, active, passive.
Yeah.
Right? So, maghdubi alayhim, an'amta alayhim. So this etiquette with God means, like as you said, we should ideally not spin out of control. But when the Prophet ﷺ died, the Sahaba sped out of control.
Yeah, a couple of them did. Yeah, a couple of them did.
Sayyidina Umar fainted, Sayyidina Ali fainted. And look at Fatima alayhi salam, who goes to the grave of Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ. And this is in Sunni tradition too. That's why Imam an-Nawawi in his chapter on patience, he mentions Fatima yelling at the Sahaba, how could you put dirt on the body of your Prophet? And they didn't tell her, oh, you're wrong, your iman is weak, what are you doing, astaghfirullah, you know? So you're right, ideally, we should be in that space. That's a goal.
Yeah.
But we're human beings, man.
Yeah,
so
I mean, any tools, man. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm going to treat this like a therapy session real quick because I just got this week I got rocked, man. I got sucker punched into something. It's a dunya related matter, you know, but it's something in the dunya that I'm really attached to. And it looks like I'm gonna have to give it up, right? And I can understand that it's the will of Allah, and it's actually a blessing when I look at it from the macro point of view, you know what I mean? But in that sense, you know, my tongue doesn't want to speak, you know what I mean? My head kind of gets it, but my heart is just not settling, you know what I mean? My heart is aching. So any recommendations on how one brings the cognitive and the emotional to bear in alignment with, you know, with accepting the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in moments like this?
I mean, that's tough though, right? Like when my daughter was sick, you know, my daughter was so orange, she had jaundice. They were telling me her oxygen was dropping. They didn't know why. It's like your worst nightmare, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's crazy, man. When we were leaving the hospital, they had the thing plugged into our finger, the oxygen meter. And just as they were like, you can go home, we had her dressed up, the oxygen goes down again. So being rocked is perhaps, like let's be honest, like what is Corona presented to people? There's 2 Coronas, right? We're talking about the virus. And that Corona has the myth of postmodern self-reliance. Like that's been blown out the window. We realize how much we need each other nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So these tests, I mean, what does theodicy mean? Theodicy means that God's will of goodness is exposed through evil. That's really what theodicy is. Like, so Adam is forgiven because of Iblis. So maybe this thing that you're being broken away from, like we should react to it in a number of ways. Number one, you should have the supporting cast, like your family, your buddies, but also religious communities, nonprofits. We don't do a good job of helping people shoulder hard times.
Yeah.
Allah says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Right? Those who work for truth, those who work for patience. Here's another axiom. isn't resilience, I don't like translating as patience, suffer. Isn't resilience part of truth? Absolutely. Why is it mentioned in isolation? It's like you say chicken biryani, right? Because the chicken is most important to say. You know, Paul Pierce in the world champion, greatest team in history, Boston Celtics, right? Paul Pierce is part of the Boston Celtics, but you mentioned him in isolation because he's central to the success of that team. Why would you say those who work for truth and then mention resilience and isolation? Because working together to stay resilient is central to the truth. So nonprofits. No, so like, where's programs for divorcees, man?
Yeah, for
We
sure.
have people that have eating disorders in Ramadan. Ramadan is a trigger for anorexia and bulimia. Like, why aren't we having support groups for that? So I would say there also needs to be like people that can support you and maybe have gone through the same experience and share best practices. And that's why most mosques, I tell them, you need to have mental health care and emotional health care people on staff, not the sheikh, not the imam. Because fate, like, that's why I would go back at my man Marcus Aurelius, right? Like, most people cannot just be, even him, there's no way he was completely neutral to faith, man. And
No. He was definitely.
I mean, fate. There's no way he could have been completely neutral, right? You have to have a reaction. So I think that would be our analysis of the first quote is.
Yeah, that's good.
Good in there. There's some good in there if we say, like, don't lose it. But sometimes being broken, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who breaks. It's one of the names, separates us from things, right? Sometimes I'm broken so the piece of my puzzle can fit into something else, right? Like, so you may be not being broken away from something, you may be brought into a different situation.
If I had my man Omid here, Safi, you know, on the Rumi, that's what he talks about. You know, he's always talking about that brokenness. You know, the light comes through the cracks. You know what I mean? The grass grows through the crack of the concrete, things like that. So, no, so subhanAllah. I just wanted to shout out to the audience real quick. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to, you know, get them in the chat. I know that you're looking at the chat room, Suhaib, and if you know, and we can address them, or if you just want to chime in. Happy to do that now. We only got about 15 minutes left, so just feel free to interrupt the conversation. And also, Brother Zahid, Brother Mudassir, I hope you guys are recording this. You know, my son sleeps in, but I was hoping I'd be able to share this one with my son. So I don't have permission on the recording controls, and so inshallah we can record this, not just for my son, but for others as well.
Sorry, man. I don't mean to throw us too far off, man. Forgive me.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I'm talking too much, man. But can you imagine how many Muslims, right, suffer with things like what you're kind of talking about now? And we haven't invested in loving them to Allah. And helping. So like when I was an imam a long time ago, I retired. Being imam's like being a professional footballer, man. Like 3 years, you blow an ACL, and then you're a personal trainer and Planet Fitness or something, like, you know.
But you're still an imam, man. You're still the line.
I quit. I'm assistant adjunct professor, thank God. But, you know, I noticed that people are having marriage issues in my community. And then I started talking to the people, like, why do you get so angry at your spouse? And the brother was like, I saw my mother shot and killed. So I was like, what does it have to do with the marriage? Well, it has a lot to do with the marriage. He doesn't know how to love right now. He's scared to love a woman at this moment because he lost this matriarchal figure that was so important to him in his homeland. So we reacted, and that was in Boston, and got people that were like mental health people. We can't just let people suffer and then have them go to conventions and hear Friday prayers and expect that to be like sometimes a religious leader may be deceived by his own greatness or her own greatness. Oh, I give a speech, I'm going to heal these people. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Like there has to be like a real investment in people that are going through very serious challenges.
Yeah. There's a discipline. There's a difference between motivation, inspiration, and discipline, right? We got to have a discipline of healing. Well, I'm saying a discipline of healing, like a routine of healing, a routine of love, and we don't really bring it. We don't really bring it that often. And I've noticed, man, that the dawah gets lost a lot of times with that lack of compassion. And I don't understand why we don't center the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has communicated to us about his law, which is his mercy precedes his anger, right? And so his mercy overcomes his anger. And so we got to be able to approach the people in that way and give them tools, you know, to get through their struggles, especially in this quarantine, man, because a lot of people, they're stuck, They're alone. They don't got their distractions. A lot of people who are grinding all the time, running away from themselves, have to confront themselves now. So they're just up in their head right now, and they're going to be going through a lot. And so we got to be able to give them those tools. So I'm gonna hit you now with some quotes from these Zen proverbs, and a lot of people are familiar with this genre of what they call Zen koans. You know, like people are familiar with the if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's around to hear it, did it make any sound kind of question. This is a practice that comes out of Zen.
Euphemisms to the table, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, they bring it like this, you know, that, you know, what's the sound of one hand clapping? So a lot of people in our, you know, in Western culture are already familiar with these things, but this is a really important meditative practice to get us to think about, you know, get us to think and reflect. Again, you know, la ibadah kal tafakkur, right? There is no worship like reflection. And so for me, this is a really important meditative practice.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful.
And one of the ones that I really like that's a stumper, and they're not supposed to have answers, I'm going to throw it at you, is there's a man who's on a mountainside, and he sees a tiger. And this tiger starts chasing him down. The tiger's hungry. It's iftar for the tiger. And so the tiger's, it's iftar for the tiger right now. You know what I'm saying? And he ain't got no adab, man. He's like them cats who show up a minute right before the iftar at the mosque and chow down, right? So the tiger's got, you know, he's got the hunger pains. He's chasing this man down. The man, you know, he's hustling. He jumps over some branches. He comes across a cliff, and he's got nowhere to go. So he pops over the edge of the cliff, right? So the tiger can't catch him. Now he's hanging underneath, like, you know, like a rock climber. You know, I don't know if you've seen that movie, the Solo this year. Did you see that movie last year? Solo, rock climbing. You know what I'm saying? It's wild. So now he's hanging underneath this mountain, and the tiger can't get to him. Okay, so alhamdulillah, he's kind of safe. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's on the verge of death, at least he's stable. He's hanging out underneath here. And the Zen proverb says that he's really hanging on a vine. You know, like picture like a big old vine that's thick, and he's got his stability that way. And right at that moment, a couple of mice come out a little hole and start gnawing away at the vine, right? So not only is a tiger above him, he's on the edge of a cliff. This vine is holding his life together, and these two little mice start gnawing away at the vine. And right at that moment, he looks to the side, and he sees on the edge of the vine, on the other side, there's some strawberries or some berries. You know, translations are different on whether it was a cherry, a berry, a strawberry. And so he sees one of them was nice, plump, red, and ripe. And he looks at it. He reaches over, and he starts tasting the cherry, starts tasting the strawberry. And it was delicious. And that's how the proverb ends. Get at me.
I mean, I used to smoke weed before I was supposed to. So probably. This is one of those like Snoop and Dre.
That's what it is, man.
In the studio at 3 a.m. Yeah. So what's the question? Like you
That's
lost
the proverb.
You lost me on the rock, bro.
That's the proverb, man. That's the proverb. And the monks used to give this proverb to the student and make him go run with it for 40 days. You know what I mean? Or 30.
Oh, you got to take
days.
this story and go run with it for 40 days.
You got to go stay with it, and you got to come back to the teacher and say,
But
this
you
is what
asking
you
me in
learned.
40 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is Concordia Zoom time, man. Come on. We got the wisdom. We got to get the wisdom in the Zoom time here. Well, the point is, man, I think
Professor X is Modassir, by the way. Go ahead.
I think that's right. Yeah. I was going to say it was Capadonna, but.
So they don't know that you and I know each other very well. Yeah. So
let's go.
So what's the question?
Well, you see, that's the point, is that there's not a question. I think there's not a question. But look, if it's all right, man. I sent it to you ahead of time, to be fair.
Are you a postmodernist? Like, what's going on here? There's no questions.
No, man. But to be honest, that's all right. I don't want to get jammed up on it. I think a question, the point of the story is immediacy. When you're hanging in, and this is kind of a Thich Nhat Hanh, again, Buddhist kind of thing.
Yeah.
When you're struggling, and these are the tools, I want to bring it back to reality for a second. When we were talking about people struggling during Ramadan, people struggling with triggers around fasting. People are quarantining with their abusers right now, okay, like you said. What kind of tools can we offer them that allow them an escape in the moment and appreciating even the taste of a cherry in the immediate face of death, of pending death? The fact of the matter is, you can always breathe, okay? You can always breathe, right? You can take deep breaths, and that's why the Tibetan monks are always about their breathing exercises, right? Yeah. And so you can always breathe. You can always do dhikr, right? You can always say salawat on the Prophet, and that can bring your heart at ease, and you can restore your faith, because we don't really have to get to tomorrow, to the end of Ramadan, to Eid. People are worrying about Eid prayer right now, right? But really what we got to do is get to the next salat. And I come from a similar background as you, Imam Suhaib. And so when I started practicing this deen, which was very much like a convert type of experience, man, I needed to stay off the drink and off the smoke one salat at a time. I just needed to get from Dhuhr to Asr to Maghrib, Maghrib to Isha, and I needed to hang out at the masjid late so that I could be back up for Fajr, you know what I mean? And so what I'm trying to say is that we have to be able to give people tools in this moment of anxiety and crisis that can get them through the immediate moment. And so I want to pause there. I want to pause there because you got a number of questions.
But there's an answer to the mice, the cherry, and the rock. I have the answer.
Go ahead.
And that is answered by Ibn Nahwi. Ibn Nahwi wrote a poem called Al-Munfarija.
Give it to me, man. Give it to me. Go ahead.
And Al-Munfarija is about how you deal with bad stuff. Because the mice isn't a tiger, bro. So the mice compared to the tiger is an existential threat, but it's a blessing too, because the mice can't really eat you. You might survive the fall, maybe.
Yeah.
Or you may make it out of that. So even Nahwi says about when you're going through it, he says, وَظَلَامُ اللَّيْلِ لَهُ سُرُجٌ حَتَّى يَغْشَاهُ أَبُو سُرُجِ. And وَظَلَامُ اللَّيْلِ, he's saying the test is so hard that night has night. Because there's no dhalam of a layl. So he's like, because layl is Muslim. Night is the night is dark. So he says, well, dhalamu layl, the darkness of night means you going through it. You going through it to the point where your dark is dark, metaphorically. Your night is night. But there's stars. So he's saying, like, even if you squint spiritually, those stars that you used to not pay attention to, you're going to notice them now because you're going through it. Means you'll learn to appreciate the little things. The mouse and the strawberry. Until the sun shines.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Man, you gotta send me that poem, man. Please send it to me, man.
Yeah, I teach that at Swiss. Horrible plug, cheap plug right now. I got you a free code. I got you a free code out.
No, plug
there are a lot of questions in there. I'll take the easy questions.
You take it.
Take the hard questions. No, I'm gonna take the easy ones.
Let me see what we got. You go ahead and take the first one.
I'm gonna take the mice, you take the tiger.
All right, a really informative, uplifting thing. Okay.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Abbas, can I ask a quick question?
Please, feel free.
Thank you so much for this interesting conversation. Imam Suhaib Webb, wonderful to hear you and the conversation between you and Abbas. I am going to pray for your daughter's continued health, inshallah, Imam Suhaib. My son also had jaundice when he was born. It was a terrifying, really scary time. He's now, mashallah, 18 and heading off to college. So inshallah, I'll continue to pray for your daughter. I wanted to ask you, I think you mentioned she was born last year about this time. So she's 1?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask how you would explain this moment in our history, our particular uncertain situation to her when she is old enough to understand it. What are the reflections that you are experiencing, thinking about, particularly in relation to your young daughter, and how would you explain this moment to her?
Yeah, you know, I think about that. Who is this, by the way? It's a really beautiful background, mashallah.
This is Salma. I'm vice chair of the Concordia Forum and here in Washington, D.C. as well.
Oh, okay, nice. I see like a Potomac vibe, you know. It's really
Close, close.
I hope you're well and I hope you're safe, inshallah.
Inshallah, yes, I am. Thank you.
You know, I think about that a lot. I was thinking actually to write something because I don't know if I have the words, because you know when you have an infant and this is not meant to sound patriarchal, but like daughters do something to daddies, right?
Yes.
You know, dad's girl, right? It's a different thing, man. And you know, I actually get really sad about thinking her first year of life, alhamdulillah, you know, for everything, but has really been met with like tests from the moment she was born until now, you know. And I don't know yet. Like, I think that's something that we have to appreciate also. Abbas, Jun, Azizam Abbas, is like, you know, sometimes we don't have to have an answer. Like, answers come, like answers take time. But I was thinking about her own development, how I may say to her, like, you're someone who has, or is going to have like incredible resilience.
Yes.
You faced, like, you were born against a current, right? Mm-hmm. You weren't born into like, you know, like organic baby food made at a farmer's market. Like, you were born with like tubes plugged into you, right? And then your first year of life, we became like the ants in the Quran. We became quarantined. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think framing it in a way that like, you're going to be excuse my language, like you're going to be a badass, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to go and slay. I'm not Imam anymore, Abbas, so I can say that. So like you're going to take this somehow, and bi'idhnillah, it's making you strong. And then it's very weird to be a parent I have 2 grown children and to an infant in a quarantine. So like, you know, trips to the park and, you know, things that you normally do with a baby who's not eating and teething and learning to walk. And, you know, all that's now in the confines of my mother-in-law's front room. Mm. So even like spatially, it's very different parenting in this situation. And I don't know what it means yet. Like, I really thought about this. Your question is something I've thought about, like, how am I going to explain to her first year or 2 of life? I don't have an answer. God knows. But I think one would be like, you can go and slay, because like the first year of your life, you experience, you don't even know what you went through, like a Walking Dead apocalypse. You know, you were born, you know, with tubes in your body, and then you overcame this, inshallah. And, you know, she's a New Yorker, so she's from Brooklyn. So she has that Brooklyn go-get-it mentality. But I don't know. What are you thinking to tell your kids?
Well, my kids, actually, my daughter went to NYU. She graduated from there about a year and a half ago.
MashaAllah.
So she's 23. Our son is heading to Tulane, inshallah, in the fall. We'll see. He's 18. And, you know, for me, as a parent of grown children, this, as long as everyone stays healthy and safe, inshallah, you know, all around us, this is a huge blessing to have 2 grown kids in our home for this extended period of time. I think it may never happen again, to be honest with you. Our daughter is such a New Yorker. It's hard to draw her back from New York. And, you know, once our son goes off to college and lives his life wherever he decides to, this is, I mean, as parents, I am cherishing every moment of this. And, you know, it's such an uncertain and difficult time for so many people. And I don't want to, you know, sugarcoat that, but Allah ka shukr, we are well, and I'm just savoring this moment and relishing it. And we've started a gratitude practice, which I've been wanting to do for so long. 3 gratitudes, every person, every evening in a bowl, and they're just adding up. And this is what I'm going to remind them. You know, things were tough outside and people suffered, absolutely. But here are the things that we were grateful for every day, despite the circumstance. So, and the reason I asked you the reflection, Imam Suhaib, if I may just take 30 seconds, is I keep a blog during Ramadan. It's called 30 Days, 30 Deeds. I've been doing it for 9 years. And this year's theme is 30 days, 30 reflections for our times. And I'm capturing personal reflections of people like yourself and others on this call. Just a personal thought about this time, how you're processing it and how you'll share it with others. So inshallah, I'll share that with you as well.
Sure, and you said something really beautiful. There's a great poem Abbas of Ghalib who says, I can't remember in Urdu, I forgot, man. But it says, if you doubt Allah's plan for you, remember Musa who went for fire and came back a prophet. So something that I forgot her name, forgive me. She
Sister
said,
Salma.
Salma.
Salma is like, my mother-in-law and father-in-law are in Jannah, bro. Because my daughter's here. This is like grandparents' Jannah.
Yes.
Like, they're so happy because like right now my daughter's there with her grandma and she's like, so for my daughter's language development, this has been like really good. Her cultural understanding of life. So there is like, we try to do every day like affirmations, kind of similar, like we affirm one another in a certain way. Yeah, so that's beautiful what you said.
Imam Suhaib, if we can help you in any way, you're in DC, probably not far from us. So please let us know if we can support you, your family in any way.
You are, inshallah.
Well, Jazakallah khair. It's 10 o'clock, and so I think we're going to wind down. But I want to echo something that if folks do not already do this, I just want to give a +1 to it. Sister Salma had mentioned a gratitude practice of writing down, things that you're grateful for, putting them in jars. A lot of people will do that. There will be some that do journals. I want to give a shout out to my former PhD student, Nagam Al-Karhili, who I believe is on the call. She put me onto this, and so this is a great practice for those who really need some grounding, and even if you don't need grounding on a day-to-day basis.
Hey, did you see Shahid's explanation of the cherry and the mouse?
Oh, let's go ahead. Let's see, what is it?
Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead, read it out.
It says, here's my answer to the riddle of the tiger, the mouse, and the cherries. We are surrounded by forces we cannot fully comprehend, with resources we can never imagine, by a creator we can never fully understand. Anything is possible.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Who is it? Shahid. MashaAllah. No, that's wonderful though. MashaAllah. Look, I want to be respectful to the time, both yours and to the rest of the Concordia Forum. Jazakallah khair, everybody, for joining us. Mudassir, Zahid, and the rest of the Concordia team. Salma for helping organize. Inshallah, we'll see each other again soon. I'll be tuning in for the rest of the day as well while we get caught up on things. Jazakallah khair for your time, Suhaib. All right, alaikum salam.
So